An appliance salesman in a pressed gray suit walked up the mountain road to the home of a widow named Sato Kiku above the Kiso Valley in the autumn of 1961. She had buried her husband 2 winters before and kept the old farmhouse alone, with 3 grandchildren asleep on the tatami. The salesman did not come with a warrant. He came with a catalog and a truck. By the time he left, he had convinced her, gently, the way they always did it, that the things holding her house together were an embarrassment. The iron kettle blackened by 60 years of fire, the knife her husband had sharpened every morning of his married life, the chest built without a single nail. One by one that winter, those things went to the shed, and shining new things came in the front door. Plastic, aluminum, things with cords and warranties that outlived the thing itself by about a week. Today, most people could not tell you why a cast iron kettle makes the water taste different, could not put an edge back on a knife to save their life, and do not know the cutting board in their kitchen was once made of a wood that kills bacteria on its own with no chemical at all. But here's the twist. The record now shows the salesman came for the grandmothers first, and the corporations came right behind them, selling the replacements. I am Mori Takeshi, 7th generation on this mountain. Nearly everything I am about to lay out was copied into a cloth-bound journal my grandfather Tatsuo kept from the year he came home from the war until the week he died at 94. He made me swear the old ways would not die with me. That is what tonight is. None of these faded because they quit working. They faded because somebody got rich the day you forgot them. That is not on you, neighbor. They are very good at selling. Before we count down, tap subscribe. Not for me. Because we are pulling buried knowledge back into daylight, and you will want the next one. Let us count down from 20, and stop asking only what we lost, start asking who profited when we forgot, and how you take it back. Number 20, the cast iron kettle. The nanbu tetsubin hung over the coals from morning to night, softened the water, and quietly added iron to everyone who drank from it. It cost pocket change and outlived 3 generations. Then the electric kettle arrived, plastic and fast, and the iron went to the shed. We now pay a small fortune for a new one, sold to us as a luxury. She paid pennies for a tool, never a cord, never a warranty. Number 19, the knife kept for a lifetime. One carbon steel hocho, touched to the stone every morning, did the work of a whole drawer of gadgets and was meant to be handed down. Then they sold you stainless steel as no maintenance, and a civilization forgot that a real edge is a living thing you keep, not a thing you replace. He bought one knife in his life, 50 years. Number 18, the whetstone and the skill with it. Here it stops being an object and becomes a hand. The toishi cost almost nothing and lasted decades, and the sound of steel on whetstone was the sound of a morning. What they sold you instead was the idea that sharpening is a specialist's job, or something you avoid by throwing the dull thing away. A man who keeps his own edge keeps his own house. Number 17, the clay pot on the fire. The donabe cooked better rice than any machine for the price of the clay. Then the electric rice cooker arrived as a symbol of the new age. It breaks in 7 years and cannot be repaired. The clay pot sits in a museum, still able to cook a meal tonight. One was built to be replaced, the other to be inherited. Number 16, Binchotan charcoal. White charcoal fired so hard it rings like metal. It cooked the food, then purified the water jug, then kept the bugs from the rice. 1 material, 3 jobs, no waste. Now they sell you a plastic water filter on a subscription and a separate thing for the pantry. What was one free thing is now several you rent. First pattern break. Notice it. Every single thing on this list still works exactly as well as it did the day your great-grandmother used it. Nothing here broke. What changed is the story we were told about who we are supposed to be, and that story was written by the people selling the replacement. Number 15, the furoshiki. 1 square of cloth carried the shopping, wrapped the gifts, and slung a load on your back, folded 100 ways, and lasted a lifetime. Then came the free plastic bag, used for 11 minutes and thrown in the sea. The cloth did not lose to a better idea. It lost to a free one someone made billions on. Number 14, the tenugui. A plain cotton cloth that was a towel, a headband, a bandage, a filter, and finally a rag before it went back to the earth. No hem, so it dried in minutes and never went sour. Now we buy paper towels by the case and synthetic cloths that outlast our grandchildren in a landfill. Number 13, Boro and sashiko, the art of mending. One they made you ashamed of. A worn garment was not thrown away, it was mended. White thread run through the weak places, cloth patched over cloth until a jacket held 3 generations in its layers. A mended thing was a love thing. Then fast fashion taught you a patch is an embarrassment and you should buy another shirt after 8 wearings. Museums now hang the old Boro on the wall as art. Your great-grandmother slept under it. Number 12, Hinoki, the wood that defends itself. The cutting board, the bath, the beams were cut from Hinoki cypress, which resists rot and kills bacteria on its own surface, no chemical at all. Then they sold you plastic as more hygienic, which was backwards, and sold you the antibacterial spray to make up the difference. The tree did for free, forever, what they now sell you in a bottle that runs out. Number 11, bamboo. From one grass that grows a meter a day and costs nothing, your ancestors made the colander, the basket, the steamer, the ladle, the blind, the rake, the brush, and the scaffolding to build the house. When it broke, it went back to the soil. Then came a plastic version of everyone, cheaper to ship from across the world, each destined to outlast the pyramids in a dump. Second pattern break. The higher we climbed, the less this is about any one object, and the more it is about a single idea. That a household could make, mend and keep almost everything it needed, and owe almost nothing to anyone outside its own door. Number 9 is coming, and it is the one that stays with you. Number 10, the tatami floor. Woven from igusa over a core of rice straw, it breathed, drinking the summer humidity and giving it back in winter, so the same room felt cooler in July and softer in January with no machine and no power. When it wore out, the core went back to the field as fertilizer. Then came vinyl, which does not breathe and never leaves the landfill. Number 9, kintsugi, mending the break with gold. Here it is. When a bowl broke, they did not bin it. They mended the crack with lacquer and dusted it with gold, so the repair became the most beautiful part, and the bowl went back on the shelf worth more, not less, for having been broken. A whole civilization that believed the mended thing was more valuable than the flawless one. Then the modern world sold you the opposite religion, that a cracked thing is trash, that broken always means buy another. They did not just sell you objects. They sold you contempt for the mended, and a household that feels contempt for the mended buys everything twice. Grandfather wrote in the margin, "The crack is where the light gets in, do not hide it." Number 8, the kotatsu, heat the person, not the house. A low table, a quilt over the frame, a small warmth underneath, and the whole family gathered warm to the bone while the rest of the house stayed cold and cost nothing. The old way never dreamed of heating empty rooms. Then central heating sold you the strange idea that you should pay to keep the temperature up in rooms with nobody in them, all night, forever. Third pattern break. Nothing on this list stopped working. Every item still functions exactly as it did the day it was made. What changed was the story about who you are allowed to be, a maker and a mender, or a customer and a renter. We are in the top 7. Number 7, the yutanpo, the hot water bottle. You filled a flask with the hot water left over from the evening, wrapped it in cloth, and slept warm all night for nothing, using water you had already heated. In the morning, that same water washed your face. Now we run an electric blanket on the grid all night and pour the boiled water down the drain. You cannot put a meter on a flask of leftover water. Number 6, the furo and the water that served everyone. You washed clean outside the tub before you stepped in, so the hot water stayed clean and the whole family used the same bath in turn, and the last of it went to the garden or the wash. One tub did the work we now waste a fresh tankful on per person. They sold you the idea that using water once and flushing it is cleanliness. Your great-grandmother called it Mottainai, the sin of wasting a thing that still had life in it. Number 5, Sashimono, furniture built without a nail. The tansu was cut to lock into itself, wood joint into wood joint, no nail, no glue, so it could be taken apart, repaired, and passed down for 300 years. Then the factory sold you furniture stamped from glued sawdust, light enough to ship cheap and built to fall apart the second time you move, so you buy it all again. A tansu lasted 3 centuries. Flat pack lasts 4 years. Number 4, the irori, the hearth at the center of the house. The sunken fire cooked the food, heated the room, dried the herbs in its smoke, preserved the roof timber, and gathered every person into one circle of light. 1 fire, 5 jobs. For wood you gathered yourself. Then they gave each function to a separate machine in a separate room, each bought, each powered, each billed, and the family that sat in one circle scattered into separate rooms, staring at separate screens. Number 3, Wara, the rice straw that wasted nothing. The harvested plant became the rope, the sandals, the raincoat, the mat's core, the roof's thatch, the egg packaging, and whatever was left went back to feed next year's crop. 1 plant fed you, clothed you, roofed you, then fed the soil again because in the old mind there was no such thing as a way. Now the harvest waste is burned and everything the straw once made is bought separately in plastic and thrown out after one use. Number 2, Teire, the daily care that made a thing immortal. This is not an object. It is the 10 minutes a day, the wiping of the blade, the oiling of the wood, the airing of the futon in the sun, that let every object on this list last 100 years. The modern world took that 10 minutes and called it convenience, sold you things that cannot be maintained, sealed shut, cheaper to replace than to fix. It did not just take your tools, it took the pride of keeping, the dignity of tending. A thing you care for daily becomes family. A thing you cannot even open becomes another thing you throw away. They counted on that. Which brings us to number 1, and number 1 is not an object. Number 1 is the reason all 19 others were taken from you. It is the plain, unfashionable idea the Japanese called Mottainai, the respect that refuses to waste what still has life in it, married to the older conviction beneath it that a household on its own ground, with its own hands, has the right and the skill to make, mend, and keep what it needs without renting it back, month after month, from anyone. Every kettle, every knife, every mended jacket, every bowl repaired with gold was an expression of that one idea. Your great-grandmother was not backward. She was sovereign inside her own doorway, and she owed the world almost nothing. And that kind of sovereignty cannot be sold to you, because you were born with it. Every advertisement and everything built to break since that salesman walked up the mountain in 1961 has been one patient effort to make you forget you were born with it. That widow, Sato Kiku, lived to 88, and in her last years, when the plastic had all broken and been thrown away, she went out to the shed, brought the tetsubin back to the fire, and raised those 3 grandchildren on the old ways after all, by remembering what each thing had been for. Let me say it plainly. I'm not telling you to throw out your refrigerator, and I'm not selling you a single thing on this list, and if a channel ever tries to, be careful. I am telling you the old way was not foolish, the people who replaced it were not neutral, and a thing being out of fashion today does not mean it was wrong yesterday. So pick one. Just one. Put a real knife on the block and learn to keep its edge. Wrap one gift this year in cloth instead of paper you bin. Mend the next thing that tears, and let the men show. Any one of the 3 this week. That is how a lost way comes back into a country, one kitchen at a time. I keep my grandfather's tetsubin on my own fire tonight. It is older than my father, and it will go to my daughter. Tell me down below, what did your grandparents keep that the world told them to throw away? The story that gets the most replies is the one I build the next video around. Next time, we go inside the walls, because every old house in these mountains hid its secrets in the joinery itself, a drawer built into the frame of the tansu that slides only if you know where to press, and 9 out of 10 of them are still sitting there, untouched, 100 years later. Subscribe if you have not. This channel exists to keep the record, not to sell you anything. To keep the record, and to hand the keys back to the people they were taken from.